Hello again. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a line graph, and I'm going to try to show a couple of things that we can do with line graphs, including the classic line graph, as well as one of the circumstances that may come up in which you find some interesting description within the line that may require two y-axes. Okay, and that's kind of a rarity, but it's one that's unusual. All right, so what I have here, I have data that I have taken directly from the US government, basically from data.gov. Anybody can go there, and it's got a bunch of data sets. And what we have here is passenger vehicle fatal crash statistics. We have a whole bunch of information here. Now, one of the first things that we need to remember is for anything to be presented in a line graph format, it must, of course, first be continuous data. The second part, however, is we must have an x-axis that has equivalent units and intervals, right? So in this case, I have that. I've got years. In this case, this data would be best presented in terms of a line graph, one or more. Okay, so let's start with the basics. We're just going to make one line graph out of this data. To do that, I'm going to go Insert, and we're going to go to Line, which is located in the Charts area. And of course, we've got other things here. These spark lines are not the same thing. Spark lines are a different deal. For us, we just want the basic chart. Okay, so I'm going to select this Insert Line Graph up here. And basic line graph, always more simple. That's what you want to do. Let's give us some room here to work. And I'm going to select my data. Okay, select data range. In this case, I don't know. Let's see what we got. How about let's examine the number of fatal crashes. Notice I am not selecting the years. Remember, the years those are just categories. They are not data. They're just information, not data. Okay, so once I do that. Yep, okay, I've got a rough line graph now. And this is basically where we need to start. Now, one of the things I want to do is on the x-axis, it just automatically does it canonically by number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on and so forth. I do want this labeled, and I want it labeled with the years. So to do that, in the horizontal category axis labels row here, I hit Edit, and I select all my years. This is where I put the years in. Okay. Once I do that, now you notice I got all the years on the bottom on the x-axis here, right? Now, one of the things you'll notice here, the switch row and column, Excel is usually pretty good about knowing which to do, but let's say all this data was presented instead of in columnar fashion, it was all rows. This would be the way that you could fix that problem. Now, if I do it this way, you notice it turns into a glorious looking rainbow. That's not what we want, right? We don't want that at all. In fact, when I did that, it just messed some things up, so I need to get rid of the second series that was just invented. And oh, okay. Apparently didn't like that at all. Let me re-grab my data. Fatal crashes. There we go. Okay. Take care of all that business. Okay, so we're good there. Again, I want to resize this just so we have a better idea what we're looking at. So I'm going to do that. Constrain proportions drag using Shift, holding Shift down and dragging it out. Okay. Looking at this, the first thing, again, we don't need a chart title. That's going away. We also don't need these variety of horizontal lines in there. Those can go away. I've got a massive amount of empty space down here, so I am going to have to change the scaling on this. Let's do that really quick. By the way, I'm doing this assuming that you've already watched the scatter plot. These are sequential. I'm probably going to put a number on there just so people know they are sequential, but a lot of this I actually covered in the scatter plot, so I'll be moving a little bit faster on some of these aspects. So I'm going to change my bounds here. Instead of being 0, let's see, what do we got here? Right under, what? I don't see any 20s there. Let's make it 30. Okay. So when I do that, right, the big deal here in terms of the scaling is, as long as you make sure people are aware that the place where our X and our Y are converging at this point is clearly denoted, in this case 30,000, then that's okay. What we don't want to do is to really allow misinterpretation of these things. In this case, these peaks and valleys may be of interest to us. I mean, this is thousands of people worth of fatalities, so we may want to have that information. All right, so I've got that changed. All right, first thing, I need to put my X and my Y coordinate back in here, so let's do that. I need a black line, and I want it to be 1. It seems to be pretty visually appealing, and I want the same thing for this black line. 1. Okay, and of course, blue might not show up on publication, so I need to change that color to black. There we go. Okay, nice black line. And since I'm already here, I might as well do some of the editing. I'll keep those at maybe 10. And let's make these 10. Okay, so one of the things that's a little different here, I'll move this over so we can see the whole thing. Ooh, no, not that. Whole thing. Okay. Is these get really kind of scrunched together and are confusing. We can fix that by adjusting their orientation, and we do that in the text options. So format access, we have access options and text options. I believe it's text options. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong. Nope, there it is. All right. In text options, all the way on the right, you see text box. We can actually change the alignment and the direction. In this case, it's already horizontal. I'm actually going to rotate that, like so. Okay, so we have a clear idea of where all this data lives in each of the categories. Keep doing that. Okay. To make it easier to do this, now I need tick marks. So I'm going to go over here and insert some tick marks. Major tick marks, and we'll put those outside. The same here. Side. Okay. Oop, not labels. Okay, just so we have a better idea that there's a column right here, and in the center of this column is 1975 data, and here is 1976 and 77, and so on and so forth. Okay. Well, this line's pretty heavy. I think I might want to reduce its size a bit. There we go. Something a little bit more subtle. Okay. So now that we have this, of course, we can do the transferring that we did. Actually, you know, while I'm here, might as well. I'm going to put the titles on as well. I'm going to primary horizontal title, year, and might as well format that while I'm here. Make that 12. And here is fatal crashes. Design, add chart element, access titles, primary vertical, and fatal crashes. Again, adjust this up to 12. Okay. Simple line graph. There we go. Nice and simple. So this makes it so we can interpret this information. We can clearly see something seemed to have happened in terms of fatalities between 77 and 81. I mean, that's a pretty big spike right there in comparison to, for example, 83 or 92. A lot of interesting data here, right, that we could transfer over, of course, by copying and then pasting over into a Word document. That's the essence and essentials of a line graph. The big thing that usually trips people up is they want to include both the category data as well as the actual continuous data, and then you end up with a weird looking chart with two lines. One that's a flat line and one that's usually just going up, right? Be wary of that. Just remember, it's just the data. Just the data, not the category information, just the data is what you want to select here, okay? And then normally what I would do is, of course, take this and move it into a Microsoft Word document and put the title up on top and maybe a caption if I need better explanation. And remember, those captions, they're not about interpreting the chart. They're just about specific information that the reader may need to understand this. Right? Fatal crashes may need a little bit more explanation. So this is a way you can do it. Now, let's say, in a certain second circumstance, let's say I wanted to I don't know, see the trend of fatal crashes given the number of registered vehicles. Well, now we got an issue because we're going to have two y-axes. It is possible to do this, however. I'll show you how we can do that. Okay, so first thing we need to do is make another line chart and get this set up a little bit. I need to select my data, and my data in this case is going to be fatal crashes. Now, to make this happen, you need to press and hold Control down, select the second data, and drag it to the end. Then you can release everything. Okay. Now we have it in this circumstance. I'm going to go ahead and get my years going. There's my years. Okay. And now we want to keep it this way. Now you're noticing here the fatal crashes, well, they're all much smaller than registered vehicles. There's a couple ways we could do this. We could alter this data and make it perhaps per every 100,000. So this would be more, 11.5 per 100,000, so on and so forth. 11.5, no, mathematically incorrect. Maybe if we do this per million, so 115 per million. That's one way you could do it. I'm just going to keep it the way that it is because, you can do it whatever way you'd like, but that's just more work than necessary for right now for the demonstration. What we need to do is we need to provide a secondary axis. And let me see if I can remember how to do this. Yes, if you click on the secondary data, which in this case is the number of registered vehicles, we get the option to plot the series on the primary axis or the secondary axis. We want a secondary axis. So notice when I do that, kind of magically, all of a sudden, everything comes snapped into focus. Okay. What this lets me do is it demonstrates on the right the number of registered vehicles, and on the left it demonstrates the number of fatal crashes. And I did this on purpose because I was aware of something interesting that occurs here. Notice we got a place where they cross. Interesting. So even though the number of registered vehicles continues to rise, at some point the number of fatal crashes goes down, meaning that there is some kind of inverse relationship based on a factor we can't tell on this chart. All right. But just in terms of formatting it, I might as well do that while I'm here. This needs to go away, and I don't need these vertical bars. Vertical bars, believe it or not, tend to just get in the way. I've noticed. So don't necessarily need those. Solid line. Let's make it black and make it 1 point. And I'm just going to do that for all of these. And the new axis you treat just like any other axis in terms of the options. Okay, got that. Nice and bounded. Okay. And one of the things that we're going to probably need to do here, because it's confusing, we don't know now which one. Is it the orange one or the black one, or the blue one that represents the data? We don't know. So we're going to need to add a chart element. And in that case, it would be a legend. I tend to like mine to the right. But you can put them all sorts of different places. In this case, actually, bottom might be nice. Yeah, we'll do it that way. I tend to go to the right, however. All right, so I want to change a couple more things around just so you can see it again. I don't like the way those are aligned, so let's change that. Something like that. And I've got a whole bunch of data down here that's missing, so let's change our tick marks on that. Let's see, our scale on that. Axis options here. Let's set the minimum to about 15,000. Do that, and then for this we need to do it equivalently. So actually, yeah, it's going to be tricky. Let me see what kind of tick marks we have here. First, I know I'm bumbling. I'm just kind of thinking as I go here. I want to give you a little insight into my own process inside my mind while I'm doing this. Okay, so we got that. The problem with this is you have to make sure that they're equivalent if you're going to get if you're going to move. Now, because these don't neatly line up, I'm not going to do that. It would mess with the data. So this is the way I'd probably just keep it. Though it would be nice to have it a little bit clearer right here. But if I do it this way, if I minimize to 15,000, if I don't do it by the equivalent proportion, removing the rest underneath here, it becomes tricky. And I'm just not going to do the math right now. It's more important to me that I show you how this works. Okay. Now, in terms of these series labels, you can actually assign those as well and select data. Right. So notice here we got series 1, series 2. Select which series you want to title. You hit edit, right, and series name pops up with the little selection box, and you just click the series name, which in this case is actually, they put it in there as two different things, which makes things sloppy. So I'm just going to manually type in fatal crashes. Ooh. Okay. And why are you completely capitalized? There we go. And series 2 is registered vehicles. Okay, so we got those right now. And looking at this, this is going to get in the way of the data access, so I think I'm actually going to change where we put that. I am going to go ahead and put it to the right. There we go. Okay, and then, of course, finally what we need to do here is, now notice here on the axis titles, it automatically registers that we have a primary and secondary axis. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my information here, year. I'm just going to do this quickly, I think, so we can get an idea of what we're doing. Okay, oop, don't want to do that. Just want it regular, like you. And last one, axis title, primary vertical. This is, oh. I don't know what happened there. I think I accidentally hit insert, which I did not mean to do. Okay, let me just fix this part as well. This would be number of fatal crashes. And I guess if I really wanted to get technical, this is an arguable point, but sometimes in my experience, I have been trained to be very specific about axis labels, or to be very clear or concise. So number of might not be necessary, but in this case I want to demonstrate that it's units, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it that way. Now the last thing I definitely want to do is change what we've got going on the color wise here. I'm going to make one of them black, and I'm going to make one of them dashed. Okay, but remember, we can't really be working with colors, because if it's published, they might not have access to the colors or something. So I'll just make one dashed and one solid. Okay. So now I have all this. I might go in here and change the formatting size of these things, but essentially, I might as well do a beginning to end on this. Why not? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. All these will be 10. And our labels will be 12. Okay, select the whole, oh, since I'm here, it automatically probably put a border around the whole thing, which I can see here it did. That needs to go away. No border. I want it to be just a blank white canvas. Okay, I'm going to copy all that, and I'm going to go over here to Word. My freshly, this is the one from the last time, but I just created a page break so I could continue this going. Okay, and here we have it. Now that looks pretty scrunched together. For something like this, I think it would be better to consider the layout of the table, and to do that, I might as well, this probably would go much better in a different section, but one of the ways that we can actually do that is if we go to, where are you? Oh. Page layout? Yeah, okay, in page layout, we can select what kind of breaks we want. If you do a section break, and you can, of course, make it continuous within a page. You can put it in the next page. In this case, I want to put it in the next page. When we do that, it allows us to change the orientation for just that page, which is a really handy feature to have. Okay, so I did that. I'm just going to come back here and copy this again and place it in here. Okay, so we have a much better, a much larger figure that we can work with now. Okay, and same thing. Might as well do this part too. Oops. Need to italicize that. Figure X. I don't know. Yeah, this might be a little wordy. But, you know, something like this. Double space. Nope. In this case, you might need to have a caption to explain everything here. But when I have this, I go ahead and print it. One of the things with this as well is I want to make sure it is centered on the page. I didn't do that on the last one either, but I want to make sure this is centered, and it looks like it is. Okay. So we take a look at it. We got a nice large chart here. Okay. So this is a more advanced kind of line graph that you can use, as opposed to the simple one that I showed at the beginning of this video. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you for the next round of how to make a graph.